So the Philadelphia Eagles signed former Indianapolis Colts cornerback Isaiah Rodgers, former sixth-round pick out of UMass. He's out of a small school, wasn't expected to do much, started out on special teams. He ultimately worked his way up to cornerback too, and he was expected to take a big leap this year for the Colts. Did not happen. Obviously, he got in trouble with the NFL for violating the gambling policy. And, whether or not you agree with it, you have to look at it and realize that some of these other players like Calvin Ridley and, Isaiah Rodgers has seen these other players get suspended firsthand that the NFL isn't messing around. And he went ahead and did it anyways. So I love Isaiah Rodgers. I love the player. I think he has incredible potential. And the Eagles are stashing him until next year, which is a pretty smart idea because he is a talented cornerback. So why not sign him now? Make sure you have him so when he comes back, you have more cornerback depth. And talking about cornerback depth for the Eagles, it is a wild cornerback room. I did have a I have a sticky note here. I wrote down all of the Eagles cornerbacks. Starters, Darius Slay, James Bradbury, and Vontae Maddox. Bradbury and Slay were incredible last year. Let's see how they continue to play. They're getting older, not getting any younger. Vontae Maddox, slot cornerback, solid slot cornerback. Then you have Eli Ricks, the UDFA out of Bama, who has been pretty impressive in camp. Preseason, lots of luck there. Josh Jobe, I believe he's from Bama a couple of years ago as well. Keely Ringo out of Georgia. I'm not as high on Keely as a lot of people are. I'm not big on Keely. A couple times in the preseason, he just let plays get away from him, let the ball go right past him. He loses the ball in the air, and the receiver just catches it. While Keely Ringo has been on receivers. He just struggles when the ball's in the air. He can't track the ball, and as a cornerback, you can't track the football. That's a big problem. Receivers are making catches on him that they shouldn't be able to make. So hopefully Keely Ringo can get better. He is a project, has a lot to learn. You have Josiah Scott. And, of course, last but not least, you have Isaiah Rodgers, who you just signed. You're going to stash him up for next year. And this was a pretty good signing for the Eagles, in my opinion. Even if, you have Darius Slay and James Bradbury go down, I'm confident in other guys that they have backing them up. And it's not only a matter of fact of them, it's look at the defensive line, because the defensive line, the old saying is pressure creates diamonds. And you look at this Philadelphia Eagles defensive line, it's going to help whoever's back there at cornerback regardless. Yeah, it's going to make it, maybe the cornerbacks won't be as talented as Bradbury or Slay. We'll see how they actually do this year as well, but maybe they won't be as talented as those two or as ready and polished, but you have that defense line who is going to make their jobs a lot easier. And he could also play slot cornerback. Honestly, when the Colts first drafted him, he's not the biggest of guys. He's I think he's 5'11", or 5'10". He's not the biggest of guys, but you know what? He plays hard and he plays like he wants it. And it was very questionable why Gus Bradley played Brendan Facyson over him. Facyson. Very questionable. And, because every time Isaiah Rodgers is in, he was covering twos, but he was also very dominant against twos. Didn't allow much. He was very good. You look at the PFF grades, his PFF grades are incredible. And in general, when you just go back and watch the games, you can see how hard he plays. It doesn't matter what scheme he's in, he's going to make it work. Made so many great plays in that cover three, yet Gus Bradley was insisting on playing Brandon Facyson, who's not very good at tackling, not very good at much, and very questionable why he was playing him over Isaiah Rodgers. So don't look at that and be like, yeah, he doesn't have a lot of snaps last year. He was not playing much. But you had Gilmore starting, and then you had, for some reason, you had them playing Brandon Facyson over him. And, it just sucks that the Colts gave rid of him. But, Chris Ballard wants to make the example out of him. He doesn't want players going up, violating any rules. He wanted to make an example out of Isaiah Rodgers, and he did so. And he released someone else too. I think it was a defensive end, Rashad Berry. But Eagles pick up a pretty good depth cornerback, and he could be a very good cornerback too on many teams. And especially with that defensive line putting pressure on the quarterback, if Isaiah Rodgers had a chance to get to be a cornerback too, I think he'd be a fantastic option for the Philadelphia Eagles down the line. So Eagles sign as former Indianapolis Colts quarterback Isaiah Rodgers Very versatile piece. He could play corner. Well, obviously he can play corner. He can play outside. He can play in the boundary. He can play in the slot. So if Avonte Maddox got hurt, throw Isaiah Rodgers in, you're not gonna see much of a big change in play and the level of play. Very good signing by the Philadelphia Eagles here today. Good job by Howie Roseman. Good job. The depth at this cornerback position is absolutely wild. If you have one guy that goes down, if Darius Slay or James Bradbury goes down, it's like, okay, you have another guy going to step up, and maybe the talent level isn't the same as those two guys, but they're still going to get by. They're still going to do more than enough. And Isaiah Rodgers, depending on where he's going to be listed, really, really impressive cornerback room, really impressive defense. Now, we'll see how this defense is going to do over the middle. I know they signed Miles Jack, Zach Cunningham. Jack actually retired. Zach Cunningham is in the twilight of his career. I do like Zach Cunningham. I've always had. He's going to get you a lot of tackles. But unfortunately, he's aging, and he's been to a couple of teams lately. He's been a journeyman, so I guess we'll see how he can do. You did lose Chauncey Gardner, who's a very, very good safety, really good in the box kind of a guy. You do have Reed Blankenship. You do have Sidney Brown. There's a lot to like, but you still have a lot of work to do in that middle of the defense, and I think that's where if there's a spot that this defense will struggle, it's in the middle of that defense, not the defense line-wise, but the secondary-wise. If you having, I just think that this middle of the defense has a lot of room for improvement. But, if this defensive line can get in that backfield and make the quarterbacks make bad decisions, then is it really going to matter? Maybe not. But, when you play against the better quarterbacks and some of the better offensive lines, it's going to be, you're going to see how it's going to fare. Those linebackers aren't great. You lost TJ Edwards and you lost, I think, Kazir White to somewhere else as well. You lost a few linebackers, and we're going to see how that middle of that defense responds. Like I said, you do have Sidney Brown, Reed Blankenship, you do have some safeties there, but you are going to have to see how that middle of the field responds, because I think that, if anything, that's going to be a weakness for the Eagles this year. Because the offense is great. You really can't find a big-time weakness other than that, in my opinion. And, when you're playing some of the best quarterbacks in the league, when you're playing another team with a good offensive line, they can pick apart that middle like it's nothing. So, we're really going to have to get that middle of that defense figured out. But, cornerback room looking pretty good. Eagles team in general looking pretty good. Would not shock me if they make it back to the final dance once again. The big dance, maybe I should say, the Super Bowl, would not shock me, but they have to get to the playoffs first. They have to get to week one first. They have to go 1 week at a time, and I like that Nick Sirianni and some of the veterans have been preaching that. You can't just say, hey, I want to get back to the big game now. We need to get there now. And, yeah, they're capable of it, but mentally, if they're not, in the right mindset of taking week by week and have to win every single week, and having to make the playoffs first and then make the Super Bowl, then they're not going to make it. That's what usually happens with these Super Bowl teams. They're like, I just want to get back there to, get that second chance. No, you have to do all these little things right. You have to make sure you don't skip any steps. Every single step is important. Every single aspect to a Super Bowl team is important, whether it's a mindset, the level of play, physically, being healthy. There's so many different aspects than just getting back there, than just playing the game of football and getting there. There's all these little things you have to do right. You have to focus on one game at a time. You have to focus on beating these teams that are gonna be out on your back on the NFC. You won your division last year. The target is on your back, and you have to be wary of that. You have to take one step at a time. You can't look ahead 1 or 2 weeks to a Dallas Cowboys matchup. You can't look ahead to the end of the season at those divisional matchups. No, you have to take one team at a time, one game at a time, to give your chance to be in that position at the end of the season to win the division. You can't just go, because if you lose if you lose the sight of, if you lose the sight, if you lose every single step, if you don't take every single step one at a time, you will not make the playoffs again. You will not make the Super Bowl. But I think they could. They have the talent, and they have the head coach, Nick Sirianni, incredible head coach. We miss him over here in Indianapolis. Great head coach. Do have Shane Steichen. We'll see how he does. And we'll see, how this defense, how the adjustment period is for this defense, having a new defense coordinator. I think a lot of people really, really pooped. I mean, it is kind of like a cringy way to say it, but I think a lot of people really talked down on Jonathan Gannon way too much. There were so many scheme-dependent players in that defense. You had Hassan Reddick. You had Chauncey Gardner. You had I'd say James Bradbury is a scheme-dependent guy. You look at them, and all these guys were scheme-dependent players, but all of them arguably had career years. So it's like, you're losing a defensive coordinator who has made the absolute best out of a lot of scheme-dependent players, and Darius Slay was on the downfall. It seemed like he was on the twilight, and he's older. But Jonathan Gannon got the best out of all these guys. Very difficult to do that as a defensive coordinator. And they're also going to have a new offensive coordinator. So we're going to see, the offense and defense. I believe they're both going to have the transition period. And we're going to see how they respond. We're going to see how they're going to do. So that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for tuning into the JDW Sports Talk Show, where every fan is welcome. If you enjoy this video, make sure to like, subscribe, put the post notification bell on so you don't miss any future videos. I really enjoy making this video, as I do all of them, but some videos I really get into, like this one a little bit. But you guys let me know what you think. Thank you for tuning into the JDW Sports Talk Show, where every fan is welcome. If you enjoy this video, like I said, like, subscribe, put the post notification bell on so you don't miss any future videos. Great place to be. We're building an empire. We're building a great place to be. Join the Discord. It's Hot Take Tuesday tonight. Go join the Discord. Drop your hot take for a chance to be featured in that episode. It's going to premiere at 9:15 p.m. Eastern. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in. Oh, last but not least, as I always almost forget, which is horrible, thank you to our members. This is our member shout-outs, Marshman Gunner and Red the Brat. I appreciate you guys for being members. Don't ever feel like you have to become a member to be part of the JW Sports Talk Show community, but if you do become a member, you're giving a little extra to the show, so you're going to get a little extra back. That's all I got for you guys today. This is officially it. Thank you for tuning in to the JW Sports Talk Show. JW, signing off.